Alright. Today, guys, we're going to learn about how to increase student motivation through research-based instruction. How can teachers create classrooms where students are motivated because they value learning? That's going to be our main topic today. So, by the end of this, you guys are going to be able to explain what research says about student motivation, distinguish between intrinsic and extrinsic motivation, identify classroom practices that increase motivations, and apply 5 evidence-based strategies immediately in your classrooms. We're going to spend a lot more time on this little bottom one here, but to be able to talk about these strategies that make sense, we really need to understand a little bit of the science or motivational theories that exist in modern time. So, here's what research says about motivation. Motivation persists is when students or anybody persist through difficult tasks. When they do this, they demonstrate higher achievement, they retain information longer, they participate more frequently, and they get better academic success. So, there's a bajillion different ways we can always look at this, guys. But for the sake of today, this isn't a whole entire psychology lesson. We're just going to talk about the basics of intrinsic and extrinsic. You probably have heard of these before. But let me ask you guys. You don't have to say anything out loud. I just want you to think about it. I want you to think of one student who is highly motivated. And I want you to tell me I want you to think about what that student does differently. Do they put in the extra effort? How do they do that? What do they do? Do they persist through tasks? Do they work through it all? I'll give you a minute or two to think about that. But while you do, I want you to think about this. Do you think that is something that can be learned? Because I really hope that you do. Because just like everything we do, it is a thing that can be learned. And motivation is a thing that can be changed within people. It can get worse if we let it. But what we hope to do is to increase that motivation amongst people. So, let's talk about the differences here. We have intrinsic and extrinsic motivation. Either of these are just the way that people are motivated. It can be through something that is intrinsic. This is people learning for something that is inside of them, like some personal intrinsic inside motivation. We could also have extrinsic motivation. So intrinsic motivation is you enjoying something, you finding it purposeful, exciting, anything like that. Extrinsic motivation is you getting focused by something outside. For us as teachers, I'd say that's like a, oh my god, this works. Wrong way. This is things like a pay raise, promotions, a benefit, prizes, anything like that. So we apply this to students. Intrinsic motivation would be people learning because they find it interesting, or they enjoy the challenge, or just anything like that. Extrinsic motivations is students being rewarded through grades, punishments, or anything like that. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a good thing, it could be a bad thing too. So like an intrinsic motivation could be like, I feel guilty about not doing a thing. Either or works. So, I know that sounds, what we do as teachers when we do this is we view this intrinsic motivation as like giving these kids the candy, are only motivating them through grades. And I know a lot of times we try to take that away as they become older. I understand that that's an important part of education, is we gotta slowly let go of the grasp. But sometimes I feel like we do that a little bit too early, is we still don't try to build that intrinsic motivation or extrinsic motivation. So, why am I saying that? Because most research has found that intrinsic motivation, that motivation that's inside you, leads to deeper learning and greater long-term persistence over time. than relying primarily on external rewards. Well, what does this mean? It means that that internal motivation is important. And that internal motivation is something that can be taught. It is something that we can continually try to give them, that extrinsic, that outside motivation, to try to motivate them on the inside. And that is the big thing that we want them to do anyways. So we want to try to work on that with our students. So kind of what we're going to do. One of the big ways we can do that is by making something more relevant. A big part of science that does this is something called controlled value theory. Basics of this is that students become motivated when they believe that they can succeed and that the learning has value, that it has a purpose. So if we don't have both that, if the students don't believe that they can succeed and that what they're doing doesn't have value, that effort's going to go down, they're not going to be as engaged, they're going to be frustrated. And I really want to emphasize this. They need to believe that they can succeed. This is like trying to set up a kid to run a marathon when they've never ran in their life. They're not going to be motivated by that. They're not going to find it purposeful at all. So please make sure that when you are doing this with your students, you are doing it at an accurate level. Please still be pushing them, but please know where their level is at. Or if you're going to push them really hard, give them that differentiation that they need to reach that higher level. So, I think this is probably the number one thing we hear as teachers. Maybe not us as much as social studies teachers, but I know math teachers hear this all the time. When am I ever going to use this? Why am I going to use this? My advice to you guys is to answer that before they ask. Know your answer in your head. Know why are they learning this for you. Because if you connect it to their prior knowledge, if you connect it to their current events, their personal experiences, or their local communities, like around where we live, guys, they're going to find it more relevant. They're going to find it more meaningful, and we're going to not be asked this question as much. So please work on that. So here's a big example, and if we look at us, we can connect it to connect economics to local businesses. We can talk about supply and demand with the Publix that's up the street. We can talk about geography and talk about how our specific environmental issues are affected by local issues and how it affects Allatoona State Creek out there. We can connect history to current events. I know U.S. history has to talk about the 1914 Immigrants Act. You guys could talk about that and connect it to modern times and what's going on with immigration there. So there's a bunch of stuff we can talk about and connect it to. So this takes a little bit more effort on our part, but just work on it. And that's our first big strategy. Our second big strategy is to increase student choice. Now, I know every time we hear this, we just think choice board. I'm so tired of choice boards because a lot of the times it just puts more effort on us as a teacher to kind of give them a bunch of small mini assignments for them to do. That's not what student choice always is. Sometimes it's something as simple as project-based learning or giving them different presentation formats. Whenever we give them their choice in this, it increases that ownership, the fact that they care about it. It increases that engagement. It makes them actually emotionally invested. So I'll spend a whole entire another lesson talking about project-based learning, but this is a really good one for social studies. It gets them involved in that specific issue. It gets them building things, and it teaches them kind of all these little side topics that they need to learn, like how do they talk to people, how do they present something, how do they solve issues. Doing this builds that engagement, builds that investment. But even on a smaller level, you don't need to give them a choice in everything. You don't need to go, here's your world. As we know as teachers, sometimes giving them too much of a choice actually causes a huge problem. So what I would ask of you guys is to just make it meaningful when you give them a choice. Work on once a unit. I know for a lot of you guys that's about one every 2 weeks. So once every 2 weeks, I want you to work on trying to build into something that includes this, that includes a major choice being made by students. Next, we can create emotional safety. Now, I'm not saying that you got to sit here and you got to be Miss Frizzle. I don't think we all have that in us. But what you can be is respected, or what you can do is respect students, support students, accept them, and make them feel emotionally safe. That doesn't mean you got to go out and give everybody a high five and a hug or whatever, but they need to be heard. They need to be listened to, and they need to know that they can be safe in your classroom. That's going to build into what we're going to talk about in a minute, but this is not, I hate the words of like building a relationship with student, but that's not about it. It is a lot more than that. So this is just establishing those predictable routines. We talk about this all the time, about how do we make them feel safe. Well, if they come in and they know what they're doing every time, they're not going to be as anxious. If you're allowing them to ask questions and you're not telling them that like, oh, that's a bad question or that question makes no sense, and you just answer them, that's making it less stressful to ask questions. If you're breaking down the task into smaller pieces, you're going to make some kids less anxious about the fact that they can do it in 80 minutes. If you're going to see a kid make a mistake, if you see a kid kind of just do something bad on accident, just calmly react to it. And again, this is building relationships. This is connecting with your students, but I know we all can do all of this. Some of us struggle with the building relationships, and that's fine. We're not all that way. But we can do all of this. This is very simple. It's something that I think we can all work on. But again, this all matters because those studies show that these students will enter fight or flight if they don't have this. People cannot think when they get put into this flight or fight. Next, normalize those mistakes. This is a big thing about making someone feel safe. It is okay to make mistakes. If we show them that it's okay to make mistakes, if we show them that everything is fine when you make a mistake, it's part of the learning process, then that's an important part of changing the way our mindset and the students' mindsets. So instead of just going wrong or incorrect whenever a student gets it wrong, go, okay, let's figure out why that's wrong. Or guide them towards the answer. Show them that, like, yeah, you're supposed to get it wrong. Failure is one of the greatest teachers that we have out there. And again, we all make mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes. It's fine. I know me personally, I'm not the best at spelling. So I love this little picture right here about teachers make mistakes. But what this means we can do, like actually as teachers and giving you an actionable thing to do, is you can allow revisions or encourage revisions. When they make a mistake on a paper, give it back to them. I know what I personally do is the first couple of times I make them make T statements or make them do writing statements, I just straight up there read it in front of them and I give it back to them and tell them how to fix it. That's what I do. That's the big thing I do. Or allow corrections. That's a little bit different here in social studies, but you can still allow them to improve. You can make them tell them why they did it wrong, or what is the actual correct answer, why they think that. There's a bunch. Or this is the thing that kids hate, but is really important, and that's productive struggle. That is getting it wrong and knowing that students are going to get it wrong, but making them work through it. It's not the fun thing, but it is an important thing. But this is also talking about this. This is important for us as teachers to model this, to model that it is okay to make mistakes. So whenever we make a mistake, we need to model that and say like, hey, it's okay. I'm learning. I'm trying to do this better. Whenever you make a mistake to your students, just look at them and be like, hey, a mistake is fine. That's okay. I'm learning. But in the famous words of Jake the dog from my favorite show, sometimes dude sucking at something is the first step towards being sort of good at something. And that's just life, dude. And the last thing we can do is promote mastery goals. Now, this is complicated and we're not going to spend forever on it, but mastery and performance are not the same thing. Especially when we're focusing on talking about what we want out of the kids. Mastery is you just getting better at something. If they're focusing on mastery goals, it's their ability, we can put this in math, their ability, or in social studies, this is the ability to get better at doing analytical stuff. This is getting better at doing the writing we ask them to do, at analyzing documents. It is focusing on getting better at doing it that, and not just what comes at the end, not just on points on a test or anything like that. So, this is you focusing on improving, understanding, and becoming more competent. It's not about outperforming your classmates. It's not about getting that A. It's about earning your highest grade. And if I haven't said this, I'm going to apologize for it, but I want to say this right now. This is all research-based. If you've been seeing these little quotations at the bottom, that's different research places that I have gotten this from and readings that I have looked through to show you that this is just not me making it up. I know that's the number one thing we hate when we have to show up to these PDs and we don't even know if they're research backed. It just sounds nice. This is research backed. This has been research backed for a very, very long time, as you can see. So, overall though, this means that we want to focus on the work and not on the outcome. Focus on what they're doing and not necessarily that they're getting an A or B. So, you can do this personally by allowing those revisions, by allowing them to work through figuring out their problems, by making them make the mistake and working through. As you can see, this is pretty layered. We can also emphasize progress and praise effort and strategy. This means not only saying good job when they get an A, but also good job when they're working through their work in front of you. That is an important part of this. And this is a lot, but I'm going to want us to focus on this later. So we want to change their mindset from working on performance, or from working on performance to working on mastery. This helps so much, and it really changes the way that they're viewing it, because now they're valuing the effort they put in and not necessarily just the end goal. So, a couple examples of this, and I want you to think about this right now, because your activity later and what we're going to do so that we can actually put this to work and not just have it mean nothing. I want a couple things you can do. You maybe start class with a real world question. You could connect what you're talking about, maybe in geography, we're talking about push and pull factors. Connect it to a real push and pull factor. Open it up with why do people move. You can offer 2 assignment choices. And what that could literally just mean is, hey, if they would rather learn, I'll make it about geography again, if they would rather learn about Egypt than about England, and you're teaching the same concept and they can learn about it in both places, give them 2 different readings. That's it. That's simple. If they need to learn about a specific president and it just says his economic policy, maybe show how give them 2 different readings that can show how that showed up. There's a whole bunch of different things. You could also just sit there. I do this all the time. I literally start class with, this matters because, we are learning this because, this connects to real life because. It is so easy to do that. It takes 5 seconds. I highly recommend this one. And don't make it your learning target that you put up on the board, and make it something that these kids actually understand. We are learning this because people move. We are learning this because this is the way the economy works. We are learning this because history impacts us now, like a bunch of different things. Allow the revision opportunity. Allow them to fix their work. That's simple. And honestly, every time I do this, it ends up taking a good chunk of class. So if you're one of those people like me that struggle to get them to continue to do things, do that. It gives you a lot of free time. And this is the number one thing that makes me also feel like a teacher, is getting that back and forth, making them struggle. Or we just end class with their reflection on their effort, see how they put in the path. Again, you don't have to do all this at once. Little itty bitty things is my advice. But all these begin to add up. So, really quick, if you want to learn more about any of this, or if you just wondered where I got my sources from, or anything like that, here are future reading sites. I'm going to post this on our little canvas that we have for PDs. So You'll be able to see this, you'll be able to read it, all this will be available for you guys if you need it. But what you guys are going to do with the rest of the breakout session is me and my team over here are going to pull up, are going to walk around, and you guys are going to pull up a lesson, multiple lessons, whatever you want to do. And you're going to implement each of these 5 strategies. It doesn't have to be big and complicated. It can be 1 or 2 sentences, or you can write it down wherever you need to. But I'm going to want a little bit of proof that you've taken your time to actually sit here and put in these strategies to work. And again, a lot of these are really easy. A lot of these are not that complicated. Just provide an opportunity for them to fix their work. There you did. You did strategy 4. You don't even have to come up with the activity. I just want you to sit there and tell me, how would you change this? If you had a reading, if you had a textbook, how would you give them 2 choices? You don't have to come up with a reading. Just tell me what you would do. That's all we need. Because I don't want to waste y'all's time. But I want you to see how you could apply this. Again, the whole entire point of this is learning how you could apply it. So let's go ahead and do that if you need it. And me and my team will be walking around. We will help you out. We will guide you through this, and we'll check in on you. Once you feel like you have your 5, just come over and raise your hand, and we'll work through it with you. If you have any questions, please just ask. Thank you.